Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Rotarians. Hey, good to see you all. Welcome to the May 15th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm Kevin Kassir, your president. Good to see you all here today. First, I'd like to thank our greeter for the day, Sue Woody. Appreciate you stepping up. And also would like to welcome Eric Oberfeld to the podium to lead us in the moment of inspiration, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, the four-way test, and we'll have an opportunity to greet everybody. And while he's coming up, we need your help. I ask for this pretty regularly, but this time I'm asking for your help. Please sign up to be a greeter. It's not that hard of a job. And please sign up, as Eric's done, for a moment of inspiration. You all really have good thoughts to share with us, and we can all learn from you. So please either get on the link on our newsletter, or you can, if you're not able to do that, you can sign up by the badge boxes. Okay? So help us make these meetings go well and keep them fun and interesting. So with that, Eric.
Thank you, President Kevin. When contemplating a message tied to today's guest topic, I kept coming back to late Congressman and Rotary Club of Des Moines member Neil Smith's memoir, From My Century to Yours, Wisdom from the Near 100-Year Life of a Former Congressman, Neil Smith. Within the chapter, Lessons on Issues from Specific to Iowa, Smith recounts his involvement in obtaining appropriations for Lake Red Rock and Saylorville Lake. And I quote, "When I became a candidate for Congress in 1958, I made it one of my objectives to not just be in favor of Red Rock and Saylorville dams for flood control, but also to promote recreational opportunities in those areas. At that time, those who could afford it went to the lakes in northern Iowa or Minnesota for vacations. But for others, there was little opportunity available in the central part of the state to enjoy the great outdoors. Having a place to go on a weekend or with the family is important, not just for family enjoyment, but for economic development as well." Smith was instrumental in creating the Iowa National Wildlife Refuge on a 3,600-acre site, which was owned by the Iowa Power and Light and identified as the site for a nuclear power plant. Following his departure from Congress, his former colleagues renamed it to what we know it as today, the Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge. And it has now grown to about 6,000 acres. He was also involved in the establishment of Grays Lake and Browns Woods parks here in Des Moines. Thankfully, Smith and many others before and after him had the foresight and the wisdom to set aside public lands across the country, not only for recreation, but to help maintain our balance with nature. Imagine for a moment the concrete jungle, New York City, Manhattan specifically, without the counterbalance of Central Park. Imagine Iowa, a row crop jungle, without any state forests, state parks, county parks, or city parks. There must be a balance. After all, as the Native American proverb so eloquently puts it, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Please greet your fellow Rotarians.
now you look. No, yeah. I want good time conversation. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm afraid I'll do it, so. Check the book.
I'll go. Yeah, we check.
I turned that one up, see if I get it right. Reading sounded okay. It was fun.
All right, thank you, everyone. We have one guest with us today, Barb Steffen, Senior Financial Administrator at the University of Iowa Center for Advancement, a guest of Chris Anderson. Barb, please stand to recognize you. And now it is Did You Know segment of the day.
Yes,
When did-
I know.
I just sense the excitement just brewing there. This is the segment where you've learned the history of pad thai to why do we have goosebumps. So think about how much smarter you are with these segments. And so with the topic of the day, I'm going to talk about animal groupings. So, you know, you say a gaggle of geese or a bevy of swans. What do you say for a group of owls?
Parliament, Congress.
Holy smokes. Parliament. See, this group continues to amaze me. All right, so this one I'm going to bet someone's going to get this one. These are some just fun ones that I thought was interesting. Parliament was good too. Monkeys, group of monkeys are a
Rotarians.
Rotarians could be the answer, but not the one I'm looking for. It's a bar association. Oh, one of the attorneys in the room. That was from an attorney. A troop of monkeys. This is a fun one. A group of squirrels is a
Irritation.
scurry. Scurry. A scurry. Scurry around, right?
Like irritation.
Another fun one, a group of kangaroos is a pack, no. Pride, no. A mob. A mob of kangaroos. And the final one, a group of porcupines is a, boy, I got you on this one, didn't I? A prickle. A prickle. There you go. So now share that when you go home tonight. Share that with your spouse or your family. And now for another segment of Rotarians on the floor laughing, or what we call ROFL. Steve.
Gee, thanks, Doug. Well, I appreciate it. You know, last week you got to vote on what the humor would be. You don't get to vote this week, you just get last week's leftovers. Country music, especially old country music, has had some real characters who rhapsodized about life, often through the lens of the bottom of a long neck beer bottle. This prism gave a unique view of life, which was reflected in the words of the songs. The words of the songs. They're not lyrics, they're words. They told of a hard life, failed relationships, and a simple existence. And the old saw was that if you played it backwards, you got your wife back, you got your job back, you got your money back. Man, I gotta quit there. Okay. Here's some of the best country, I think, country lines. I don't know whether to kill myself or go bowling. When I'm alone, I'm in bad company. Don't cry down my back, baby, you might rust my spurs. I've got a funny feeling I won't be feeling funny very long. You guys are tough. You guys are really tough. Okay, let's see. I got a whole list of these things, so I can go on for a while. Our marriage was a failure, but our divorce isn't working either. Don't tell me you're sorry. I already know how sorry you are. So, I'm ashamed to be here, but I'm not ashamed enough to leave. So, and that I will let it go.
And back up doing double duty is Eric Oberfeld to introduce our keynote speaker of the day. Eric?
Today's guest speaker, I was actually fortunate to be introduced to through a connection made through Rotary, thanks to David Oman. This topic came up at lunch and got connected with our guest today. So, Joe McGovern. Joe grew up in north central Iowa and graduated from Iowa State University. With a degree in fisheries and wildlife biology. He spent 6 years with Story County Conservation before joining Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation in 1999 as their land stewardship director. Joe is now in his 13th year as president and CEO of INHF. He is both proud and humbled to work with the dynamic board, staff, and volunteers of this statewide land trust that works passionately to protect and restore Iowa's land, water, and wildlife. INHF has completed 1,600 projects, protecting over 200,000 acres since 1979. Joe will introduce INHF and discuss key projects and partnerships today that have helped improve quality of life here for all Iowans, with an emphasis today on central Iowa, and talk about projects such as High Trestle Trail, Brenton Slough, and Chautauqua Bottoms Greenbelt. So with that, please give a warm Rotary welcome to Joe McGovern.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Kevin, and Kitty. Thank you for helping me with the presentation. Really an honor to be here. I recognize quite a few in the room. Some I've known for a long time, and some I'm looking forward to get to know. I want to acknowledge Mike Lemaire, former board member and chair. So thank you, Mike. David Oman, longtime friend, board member and former chair, and then John Tone, see, a little bit before me, but worked on INHF staff in those early years, which I'm so grateful for. So I'm going to try to make this work. What I want to do is kind of introduce you to INHF. Some of you, like I said, have known us for quite some time. Some of you have been members, supporters, so appreciate that. Some of you might recognize the name, and there might be some of you who don't know anything about us. What I hope by the end of this is you'll at least recognize some of our work. Because as a nonprofit, statewide organization, it is more about our mission, getting our work done, than making sure everybody knows who we are. So I'm going to try to run this. Oops. Let's see. Sorry, Kitty. That advance it. Oh, I see. I see what I did. Okay. I figured it out. Okay. Thank you. So our mission has been the same since 1979: protect and restore Iowa's land, water, wildlife. I'm sorry for those who might not be able to see. And quite frankly, has been the same from the very beginning, and we're in no mood to change that. In fact, our most recent strategic plan, which will take us to 2030, just reiterated that. Our mission is to protect and restore land, water, wildlife. We're very proud of being consistent in our 46 years. Our vision is really about a healthy Iowa, healthy landscape, healthy communities, healthy people, etc., economy. The main focus would be land protection, land stewardship, managing the land. A little bit, as we move out, is making sure that people are aware of the issues in Iowa. There's many of them. And obviously keeping our organization strong. So recently, a lot of nonprofits have kind of struggled just with downturns in economies, and we've really set our course to stay strong and vibrant and be able to weather that, recession-proof, if you will. I'm gonna make sure go the right way. A little bit about who we are. We are statewide. We're river to river, border to border. We were created in 1979, but I'll give you a little bit more details on that. We are an accredited land trust, so there's 1,000 land trusts across the country. There's about 500 of them that are accredited. We're in our third round of accreditation, which is really a high standard, and we're really proud of that. We do have a large board, 36 board members. About half are here in central Iowa, and then the other half are scattered around the state, as you can imagine, trying to cover us statewide. We were founded by then Governor Ray in 1979. And Governor Ray and local business leaders and people around the state really had this one central issue they were looking at, and they were trying to increase the amount of public land in Iowa. And what they found was the state, as you can imagine, has a process, and they moved a little slow, and they were just unable to acquire some of these key properties that they wanted. So that very singular focus led to the creation of INHF. So you can see that's Bob Buckmaster from Waterloo, Dan Crum. That's our first president, Jerry Schneff, if you know Jerry, and that is a very fine-looking young Governor Ray. His vision was perfect. He said, you don't want to be tied to government money. So we receive no government funding. We're solely 501c3 and publicly supported. And that has proven to be so wise over the years. But he also was very altruistic in the focus and in what we were here to do. And so even today, we stay very narrowly focused on our mission. I'd also like to always think about who we serve. And really, I break it down into three. Two of them are voiceless, cannot advocate for themselves. So nature itself really can't advocate for itself in the society we have. And then future generations are really young people or those who are not here yet. They can't advocate for themselves. So they're going to inherit whatever world we give them is the world they get. And nature is really, for lack of a better word, at our mercy. And the third component is you. Right here, right now, what kind of Iowa do we want? What kind of Iowa do we want to live in? How do we make sure that nature's here for you, or an outdoor recreation, and also future generations? We know we have valuable agricultural land. I grew up in north central Iowa. We know that it's a very critical part of our economy. And if you're from other parts of the state, like southern Iowa, you're used to grazing lands. Again, very, very important to our economy. We also have very valuable natural resources. And so that intersection of those is what's so important. So we need clean air, clean water, healthy soil, outdoor recreation, and ultimately our quality of life is that intersection of the best agriculture in the world, and what I want is the best nature, the best outdoor recreation. And here's a really good example if you're familiar with the Great Lakes. This is the north shore of Big Spirit, and you can kind of see it has a little bit of development, you have agriculture, but there has to be a place for nature because all of that runs right into the lake. And so there's a classic example of a great intersection. Our projects around the state, we work in every county. We pride ourselves, we've had over 1,600 different projects. That recently averages about one a week. And a project for us is usually an acquisition or either purchasing or selling. And these are the trails. So you can see these little green dots. That's not public land. Those are all the projects that we've worked on. We definitely are focused on parks, trails, and wildlife areas. So how do we create new areas? And I'll get into that a little bit. But also linear trails, super important. We also work very closely with private landowners on private conservation. So how do we preserve nature on private land? So this will be like the Upper Mississippi, the Luss Hills in western Iowa. There's Effigy Mounds National Monument in northeast Iowa. This one is on public land. This one's on private land. So again, can protect on both public and private. And I mentioned the Great Lakes. If you go up to the Okobojies or the Great Lakes, it's a classic intersection of incredible outdoor recreation, tourism, economies colliding, but also surrounded by ag land. And so we find ourselves really working in that kind of transition zone. We've done a lot of projects up in that way. But sometimes it's just about being in nature. So when I talked about natural areas, and Eric said it really well about Congressman Smith, how do we make sure that there's wild spaces in Iowa for us to enjoy? So if you've been on the Upper Iowa River, really cool. Chaco Bottom's Greenbelt, I actually pretty sure I can see it from here. It's I've been up this high, but it's just 20 minutes from downtown Des Moines, and you can be in one of the largest wild spaces, not just in Polk County, but in the state. We're approaching close to 10,000 acres. Working closely, and I'll mention Rich here in a little bit, but working closely with Polk County Conservation Board. Keene Conservation Area, if I were to look out that window, I could probably see Keene there in Dallas County, great outdoor recreation area. And then Eric mentioned Neil Smith. It's approaching 7,000 acres. 20% of the Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge has gone through INHF. So we bought the land, we held it while the federal government, which does take a long time to get things going, then they could acquire it from us. So it seems like a very simple process. We buy it, we hold it, we wait for the federal process. We bought a piece in 2008, and it took 2015 before they were able to purchase from us. But now that added 800 acres to the refuge. So if you haven't been out to the Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge, it is super cool just to be out in nature 20, 30 minutes from here. But I also want to recognize the private landowners. I did not see Governor Branstad, but he was instrumental in helping create Gift to Iowa's Future Day. And this was a day we set aside every year. It's a recognized day in Iowa that we honor private landowners who have done conservation. And so in this case, Cal and Frankie Parrott donated property in Pottawatomie County for the Conservation Board. And Governor Reynolds now, she continues to handle those awards. So it's really cool interaction between private landowners and the public partners. We do some policy work, but we're very focused on funding. We're not out there, working on bills. We're looking at REAP, we're looking at the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, which is something we've been advocating for a long time. Again, just focused on funding, so there's a little bit of information around that. And things like federally endangered species, or soon to be, like monarch habitat, we work closely on that. We have our own land stewardship, so if you've never been on a prescribed fire, it's a lot of fun. I get accused of being a pyro sometimes, but those days are in the past now. But we do have a volunteer program, which is kind of fun too, and I know Rich Leopold with Polk County Conservation, that's a big way. How do we get people outdoors? Some people say, I don't have the financial resources, but I got time. And so here they are with bouquets of garlic mustard that they've pulled out of the woods. So a great way to be with like-minded people, but a great way to serve as well. And I mentioned, or had up there about our land stewardship interns. We have 25 to 30 interns a year now. And these are young college students interested in conservation, and they get out and they work really hard on the land. I think the thing is they all stay about 18, 19, 20, and I keep getting older. So it's a great energy, a great way to expose them. This is on the upper Mississippi River, just as an example, but we give them exposure statewide. This is a map of the trail, so I'm going to kind of focus on here in central Iowa moving forward, but this is a statewide map of all the rails to trails in Iowa. I'm going to go back here. Here's an old railroad corridor, if you're familiar with those. As the railroads were transitioning, there was a lot of corridors available. And some really brilliant people, not me, said these would make wonderful trails. And there was a lot of work in the early 80s to do rails to trails, and Mark Ackelson, my predecessor, was instrumental in making them happen. The Cedar Valley Nature Trail, the Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, that was the first big one, which was controversial at the time, and now it's just an amazing place. Here in central Iowa, kind of give you an orientation, Des Moines, there's Ames. This is the trails you could get on if you were a bicycler or a hiker. We have 100-mile loops here in the metro area that you could get on and not have to get on a road. It's quite amazing. Places like the Somerset Trail, Chaco Valley Nature Trail, just a little bit east of here, a place I like to visit a lot. Wonderful. Again, thank you, Rich. And the High Trestle Trail. So when I mentioned that you might not know our organization, but you probably are familiar with places like this, This was a trail that went through INHF. I think Mike and David can remember when we went to the board and said, we got this little bridge thing we want to buy that crosses the Des Moines River. Oh, by the way, the bridge is gone. We're just buying the concrete pillars. So a 25-mile corridor that we had to secure. And that really goes back to Governor Ray. We needed to be able to secure these things so we could get things in order. Had we thought that this had to be ready-made and it was already a trail, we would have lost it. So we were able to secure that. I know many of you in the room helped fund that, helped put this together. Now it's one of the most iconic trails really in the world. I go places and I see it all the time. Without securing that corridor and without all the great work of business leaders and like-minded people, we wouldn't have had this dedication. So here's Governor Branstad, Governor Reynolds. You can see Congressman Boswell in the front. Some of you are in this photo, I know. What a wonderful day. And now nobody knows who did that trail, and that's okay, because everybody gets to visit that trail. But it's also a little messy, and this kind of goes back to our role in securing. Sometimes you lose those corridors. This is Broadway, and as that road is being redone, the Chaco Valley Trail, we wanted to connect to the Neil Smith Trail. We couldn't get there because we had lost that corridor. So now we're having to find ways, and here it is on the side here, a little something. Now that's great. We're going to work with our municipalities in putting that together, but it's a lot more work when you're trying to retrofit, and that'll be kind of the theme. So when you look at these trails, some of these are still being constructed, but you should be able to go from the metro all the way down to Red Rock, go into Pella, all by trail. How cool would that be? Or you can go up to Marshalltown. It could be an amazing 2 or 3 day trip. It's just kind of all sorts of opportunity. So I'm going to shift gears in kind of the nature side, and this is a fun story for me, mainly because there's been a long relationship. Bill Brenton was an early board member. The Brenton family has done a lot for the community, but is also one who's been thinking about the disposition of this land for a long time. I know some of you in this room as young boys got to hunt out at Brenton Slough decades ago. So it's a really special place. There's some things on your table about it, but hopefully you'll get to see kind of where this is at. So here's Grimes, and then Granger, there's Saylorville Lake, so we're down in here somewhere. And this kind of wild space or in the middle of nowhere slowly had the city growing towards it. And about 7 or 8 years ago, the Brenton family had approached me. They had 32 members in ownership now, so you can imagine as the disposition was coming, they weren't sure how they were going to preserve it. They had different needs within the family. And basically what they had asked is, are you interested? And quickly, yes, absolutely. And then they said, paint us your vision. So I reached out to Polk County. They had asked who would be the best owner of this, and I said, without reservation, it's Polk County Conservation Board. They're an amazing group. They have the resources. They got a great leader in Rich, and they were very, very interested. So then Rich and I met with the family, and they said something really cool. They said, we've got a large area here we want to develop, but we want you to have the first chance at your dream map. What kind of nature would you want if you could just draw your line? And so we came up looking at Beaver Creek, looking at the natural area. We came up with this dream map of almost over 1,100 acres. Some people have asked me, well, why didn't Brentons do more? The very first thing they did was give us an opportunity to preserve something in one of the most rapidly growing areas in the state, if not the Midwest. And we were, rather than retrofit conservation, we were able to say, here's this 1,100 with defendable boundaries, and an opportunity, and I'll show a map later, to connect to Jester Park. And they gave us that opportunity. So we came up with what we considered the best boundary. It's very expensive. They needed to sell that for the family, but then there was some significant gifts back. So some of the family members could make gifts afterwards. So we were able to secure that. We're in actively fundraising mode. Gorgeous place. You would not know this is, again, 20 minutes just to the northwest. Significant water quality, outdoor recreation, quality of life issues, right? But the real thing I'm excited about is that now we're gonna have a nature in, Eric's set me up perfect. Think about Central Park. This is gonna be 5 to 6 times the size of Central Park. And then we're gonna, as this thing grows, we're gonna make sure that nature is anchored in the middle, and it will be a destination, and it will be a place that we're gonna be so proud of for decades to come. And if nobody knows who did it, that's fine, because it'll be there. We also had to get creative on the fundraising. We have opportunities to engage nature people, outdoor recreation, so kayaking, biking, walking, there'll be some duck hunting. And ultimately, what I'm most excited about is another way for the next generations to stay connected in nature at a time when we're seeing that disconnect. So again, looking at, as you can see, this is city limits, and it is growing fast. But what we hope is that from here to here is 2 miles. And if there's already a trail corridor reserved in the city of Grimes, so we worked with the city of Grimes, we're working with the city of Granger, working with Polk County Conservation, and they want this to be an anchor. So they are excited about this green space. Some of this is prime development, but they saw the need for nature to be in the middle. So it kind of brings all that together. We have transferred about 700 and some acres to the Conservation Board already, so phase 1, such a big project, approaching $8 million. We're able to transfer this piece to the county. We're working on phase 2 and phase 3. So there's what the county owns now. We really, really want to pick up the pace and get that whole thing over to the county as soon as possible so they can do their magic on management. So we've got some grants in there. I feel we're on the downhill slide. Those of you in fundraising know the first dollars and the last dollars are usually the hardest. So we're actively fundraising for that. And there, if you want to know more about that, there you can get on inhf.org, and there's a page on the Brenton Slough. So when I mentioned the 1,600 projects and all the acres, every one of them has this kind of story behind it. Maybe not to the level of Brenton Slough, but there's a landowner, there's a relationship, there's a purpose behind it. And so when you think about Iowa on the statewide level, that's what's so exciting about, and why I chose to be into this field, was that we get to do these great things for small communities and large communities alike. If you have land or you know people that have land, please consider permanent land protection. We have our landowners options, which just walk you through your options. It's nothing binding, but it's a great way. So if you go to iowalandoptions.org, it'll give you all sorts of tools for conservation. And at the end of the day, when I think about Iowa, why I chose to stay here, many of you are business leaders and in your communities, obviously community leaders. We need the best, right? We need the best ag land, we need the best economy, and that quality of life is what's going to make the difference. When you think about attracting and retaining the best and the brightest, our workforce, what's going to keep them here? People say a lot, they can work anywhere. We want them to live here. Personally, I want them to live here and work here, so we keep both in the state. But that's what we're really about. So how do we find the best nature, the best outdoor recreation, and then make our communities more vibrant? And I believe the work we're doing together with all of our partners is what's going to make a huge difference. So with that, I will take any questions if we have time, but I thank you so much for being here. It's just a real pleasure to see old friends and talk about what I love and do. So any questions, any thoughts? Yes, sir.
What came to mind is, do you work with any of the organizations that work with children, adults with mental health issues, and tie in maybe some programs for them to get out in nature and, have a different environment?
So the question was, do we work with other groups to get people outdoors, in particular, maybe at risk, or people with mental health or physical health? And maybe not as directly, although we are working more of what we would call our community conservation, so we're trying to reach out to other groups. This is where the expertise of people like Polk County Conservation and Rich is so critical. So we view ourselves as the partner. So we're gonna kind of stay focused, which is a really good question, stay focused on what we're good at, but making those places available. So you think about a trail, getting out, stress relief, things like that. So that, again, was one of those things kind of staying in our lane, but it's so critical. The mental health, spiritual health, physical health. We're hearing about cancer rates and how important outdoor recreation and nature can be to that. So it's a great question, very much. Yes, sir.
You know, a lot of us know the really popular places like the High Trestle Trail or, you know, Ledges or Neil Smith. What are some underrated spots in Iowa that we need to visit?
So I tell you, we kind of know the popular places. What are some underrated? Well, I got to keep my personal ones quiet. Who? Well, I think north of Marshalltown, you know, the trail there, we've got the Iowa River's Edge Trail, which we're working on. That area is absolutely amazing. The Iowa River corridor, there's all sorts of protected land in there. And once you kind of get out away from the metro, you'll find yourself in some real solitude. So if you're looking for trails, that's a great one. Ironically, some of them, like Neil Smith, we know about it, but you can find yourself out there just immersed in nature. Are there any hunters in the room? A couple? I'm a hunter. You know, we're trying to create 1,000-acre blocks of hunting land, in particular in southern Iowa, that'd be less than an hour from Des Moines. So we're trying to take those to people. Southern Iowa, if you're into wilderness, wildness, is unbelievable. Just hill after hill. I know Mike's very fond of southern Iowa. I am. It's low density of people and incredible nature. So there's some huge state forests down there where you could hike for hours and hours. Great question. Yes, sir.
Was the whole pipeline issue, was that a threat to some of the areas that you're trying to develop?
So the question was about the pipeline, the CO2 pipeline, and I'm gonna kind of nestle a bunch of things in that one too. You got the pipeline, you've got wind, you've got cell towers, you've got hog confinements, you have these things that sometimes are not gonna be compatible with preservation and open space. Some would argue that they're needed. The CO2 pipelines, I would say, is TBD. We saw the Senate vote just yesterday and kind of bringing down that eminent domain a little bit. So far, it hasn't threatened some of the spaces. As you preserve land, they tend to go around those. So if you look at our protected land and our public lands, they do not have to let those things through. It's a higher level of eminent domain. So we're always balancing those needs with kind of our desire to preserve. So far that pipeline hasn't really threatened the conservation work we're doing, but it's a very volatile issue. Yes?
What are some endangered species in Iowa, and then some species that you're proud to say that INHF has been part of helping them come back?
Wow, that's a great. So the question was about endangered species and that are in Iowa, and then ones that we'd be proud to work with. My first one I got to work with was in 1989. It was a little minnow about that big called the Topeka Shiner. And it was in the Raccoon River drainage, and it was federally listed, and it was so controversial. They were worried that it was going to take all this farmland because you had this federally endangered minnow. I was able to work on the recovery of that, and now that species is probably going to be delisted. And what we found was the species itself is about habitat, not about it itself. It actually could take different water quality, but we needed to put oxbow wetlands down. And if you've heard of oxbow wetlands now, it's because of that work we were doing in the late 90s. Back then it was kind of, well, I don't know what that is. Now it's just everywhere. But it also benefited water quality. So this little tiny minnow helped us on water quality, outdoor recreation, because you got all these off-channel habitats. So that one I'm super excited about. Plus I was kind of a fish guy in college, so I really appreciate it. The other one, maybe not on the federal level. I mentioned Chautauqua. You 30 years ago would not have seen an otter out there. Now there's otters all over the place. You wouldn't have seen a bobcat. Now there's bobcats out there. Nesting sandhill cranes. You can go 20 miles that way and see sandhill cranes regularly. So sometimes, Colleen, it's not just the most endangered, but what we're missing in that old verbiage, you build it and they will come. nature is resilient, and when you build these great places, nature finds its way back. Sometimes we have to help them. And so we can have the best, right? We can have the best ag, best business, and the best nature. That was a great question. Yes, sir.
Joe, one quick question.
Yeah.
On the map that you showed about the Brenton piece, the Polk County, Dallas County line goes right through the middle of it.
Somebody noticed that.
And if you're transferring this to the Polk County Conservation, what about the Dallas County side?
Absolutely.
of the equation?
I'll go ahead and answer. Because this political boundary was there, we had asked ourselves, do we go with Polk and Dallas County? So we approached Polk County. Would you be interested in, and they're able, they can own land in Dallas County, that happens pretty commonly. And then we approached Dallas County and they were like, this is great, you guys do it. It's better to have it managed as one. So they will be owning these properties in Dallas County and managing them. And I think any of us who go out there, we're not gonna know where that county line is. It'll just be a really cool place.
So Dallas County will own the land on
Polk County will own both sides.
both sides?
Yep, but it was a very open conversation they weren't hurt by it. In fact, they were like, please do. We don't wanna try to find $4 million, so, thank you, Polk County. So it's a really cool thing when it's about the resource, not about who gets credit or who's actually doing it. But great question. There's the county line right there. How are we doing on time, Kevin?
Yep, got about 5 minutes.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, regarding the fund the trust, I've been
Yeah.
sort of personally resistant to the idea, just in that it seems like if it were funded, it's a fixed type of distribution and
Right.
it's hard to
Right.
change.
Uh-huh.
There's just not a good way, so tell us why we should support it.
Absolutely. I really, really appreciate that question. Let's see if I can find it. So he asked about the trust fund. If you remember in 2010, we voted, boy, that's a long ways back. We voted in 2010, over 63% of Iowans voted to change the constitutional amendment that would set up the trust fund. And it's only funded at the first 3/8 of a cent on the sales tax increase. One of the misnomers, though, is it's not fixed. It has to go to Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, but the formula intentionally is in code that can change and adapt over time. So there is a formula for it. We looked at all the needs, so things like REAP, right here, that would be funded at 20%. REAP is one of the most popular projects or programs in the country, so it would fund that. But it would have to adapt, and so we baked that in intentionally. The reason why I say it was funded, we need sustainable, reliable funding long-term. How can we plan for our future when we're constantly finding ourselves in what I would say is underfunded programs, and we're spending a lot of time and energy on the annual? Just think if we knew the funding, just like the gas tax funds the roads and they got a 10-year trajectory, they're not thinking about funding, they're thinking about what do we need next. And that's where we in conservation think we can find ways to bring this into the communities. Another thing to keep in mind is that the trust fund hits everybody. It's agriculture, it's trails, it's outdoor recreation, water quality, soil health. 2/3 of this would go to water quality in one way or another. And then think about when you spend $1, you want that dollar to go to one thing or do you want it to go to 10? And the stacked benefits behind Iowa are incredible. So instead of cleaning the water at Des Moines Waterworks, we're gonna clean it up in the watershed with a wetland that has kayaking, duck hunting, outdoor recreation, including water quality and soil health. So we really are really proud that we brought all stakeholders together, not to just create the trust fund, but to create the formula that can and will need to change over time. So it could address flooding if it needed, things like that. Great question, thank you for that. And I didn't plant that question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, that's another question. Let's, 10 years from now, what does your organization look like?
Great question.
And the effect on the state?
Ooh. Well, 10 years from now, I'll be, hopefully, God willing, retiring. So get another vibrant people. what we really see ourselves, and thank you for that question, Bob, is we see ourselves growing, but we see ourselves staying true to who we are. We want to be a partner. Over the decades, that has adapted on how we do our work, but the what and the where and the why is so true. So I can't tell you what Iowa's gonna look like, but I can tell you we want to be at the table and be a partner organization, and we want to be effective. I'm not interested in attention. I want to be effective, and we want to make great places happen. I truly believe we're going to see, because of places like Brent and Slough, and because of great organizations like Polk County and Smith, and we're going to see this resurgence of the best of both worlds. We're going to figure out our agriculture because it's important. It's very vibrant. But I think when we carve out nature, when we carve out these places, the quality of life is going to be so attractive. Other parts of the country aren't going to figure Iowa out yet, but they're going to want to be here, and we want to be a part of that. So thank you.
Joe, thank you for joining us today and all you do to make Iowa a great place to live. Really appreciate you. Okay, upcoming speakers. Next week we have the CEO of the Lutheran Services of Iowa. So that'll be very interesting. On the 29th, Emily Price, who leads Count the Kicks, will speak to us about her organization. And then on June 5th, we have our own Patty Quintless to be able to tell us about healthy aging. So Patty and I ran into each other at an event recently, and there's no better after chatting with her about it, no better person to inform us on that topic than her. So she will be our keynote speaker on the 5th. We have just had a recent morning fuel on Tuesday, and it was Dr. Doug Dorner. So we learned a lot about Doug. We learned about how he was an athlete in high school and college, right? We learned about his great education and his career, community leader, vascular surgeon. I mean, he has had a very impactful life. But probably one of the most exciting things that he shared, he was in a movie. He's on the left there. And the movie is called The Laughing Policeman. It had Louis Gossett Jr. Who else? Doug? Walter Matthau. So yeah, so it was with some big stars. And Doug Dorner. And you can find it out there. You can find it out there. So yes, he played himself as a surgeon when they brought somebody in off the streets in San Francisco, right, Doug? So we have a lot of fun. We learn a lot from some of our great Rotarians, and we get to engage in a more casual setting. And the next morning fuel that we have scheduled is with our own Claudia Schabel. We'll talk about her life, her career, and building a successful company in Schabel Solutions. So we're looking forward to that June 10th. So put that on your calendars. 9 to 10, Freedom Blend Coffee is where we do that. So, bringing this to a close, Barb, welcome. Good to have you here. Joe, thank you. To our members, again, please reach out to each other for a coffee, for a lunch, just to check on somebody. That is a big thing of what we're trying to drive here in the Rotary Club of Des Moines is fellowship. And please invite someone that might also enjoy building relationships with this fine group and getting together and doing good things. So make it a great Rotarian week, everyone. We are adjourned.